Hi everyone, welcome to my channel about cross stitch. My name is Megan and I'm Stitching Moon here on YouTube and also on Instagram. And today is my first Flosstube extra video. So normally I do my updates and works in progress, but this video I'm actually going to focus on the patterns by Nora Corbett that are the Zodiac Girls. They were released, I think, in May, and they only have the first 6, so I ordered all 6 of them. And I thought it would be fun to just talk a little bit about astrology, since they're the zodiac signs, and just kind of how I see each sign represented in the chart. So, yeah, that's what today's going to be about. Just to start off, I'm not like an expert in astrology or anything like that. It's just an interest of mine and something that I've kind of looked into over the years and I've read a bit about, and I'm just interested in it and I think it's cool, so yeah. And also, yeah, if I say anything, don't take it as any advice or things about you personally, like this is just for fun, my opinion of what's in the chart. And also, like I said, it's my opinion, so I don't know what what Nora Corbett or the artist was, thinking of when they designed it. This is just what I see based on what I know about the different signs. So I do want to do a little intro first, like for just a little bit about basics of astrology. And yeah, I have like a note, so I'm going to be referring to that a lot because it's a lot to remember. I have a lot I want to just like share and talk about. So if I'm all over the place, apologies in advance. So I just want to give an overview of like what a birth chart is, because a lot of us think of our sun signs, right? And I think in Great Britain they may call it the star sign, which is like when people say, oh, I'm an Aries, I'm a Taurus, I'm a Scorpio, they're usually referring to their sun sign, right? Like that is basically what that means, is that's the position the sun was in the sky when you were born. So that's what most people kind of think of, but that is just really one like tiny little sliver of the whole birth chart. So it really doesn't tell us much about that person if we just look at the sun sign. So I want to explain a little bit more like how you can actually like look at your own birth chart and show you how to do that if you want to, and just like all the basics of all the things that go into it. You can get really deep into this stuff, but we won't go that far today. We'll just talk about some of the basics. There's also different types of astrology and different perspectives on astrology. So the Western astrology is what we mostly see in the West, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. But there's also Vedic astrology, which I think is really fascinating. I was getting into that a little bit for a while, and they kind of emphasize a little bit of different things as the most important parts. So that's really interesting. They use the sign actually your moon was in at birth, so your moon sign a lot more. And then there's different like types of ways you can view astrology. And the type that I really like is called evolutionary astrology. And that kind of assumes that like instead of saying, oh, you're this sign or your planets are here when you're born, so this means you're this way. It's more like areas for growth, and it says you can change and adapt, and that astrology is just kind of saying where your challenges are, where your strengths are, and how you can kind of use those to evolve and grow from your life. Another cool thing about evolutionary astrology is it actually, most of them assume like reincarnation and assume that we've had other lives, and that our chart is kind of like what we bring over from past lives. So it's kind of like showing, you can kind of think of it like karma in a way, I guess, but it's showing kind of like, okay, these are the things that maybe lessons you haven't learned yet from the past that you want to work on in this life, and things that you did really well, so it's going to be a little bit easier for you in this life. But the goal of the whole view is like, we're here to evolve, we're here to grow and to learn. And where I got a lot of that information is actually a great beginner's book if you're interested. It's called The Inner Sky by Forrest. And yeah, I would recommend this book for if you're beginning or even more advanced. Like, it's great. Like, it just, the way he writes is really cool. It's just very kind of poetic and he uses a lot of imagery, and describing the signs and planets and houses, which I'll talk about what those are. So yeah, so I have a little bit of a cough. I'm recovering from a cold, so if you hear that in my voice or I cough a little, that's why. All right, so first I'm gonna explain just a little of the basic birth chart, and I'm gonna basically, in order to get like all the information you need for that, you just need to know 3 things. Obviously your date of birth, also your location, the like town and city and state or other part of the world you were born in. The more accurate you can be there, the better. And the time of your birth. So the time, really, we want that to be very accurate. So to the minute, if possible, because that is going to change different areas of things that were in the sky based on that time. Different things can change, even if it was just a few minutes off. So it's best if you know your exact birth time as well. But if you know that information, you can actually go for free online and look up your whole birth chart, and it will show you your entire birth chart. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'll list one of the links below where you can do that. And this is what it looks like if you do one of those. There's a lot of different ones you can do, but this is the one that it prints off. And yes, I'm going to put my birth chart out there for the world to see. So if you want to interpret it, feel free. But you can see it's a big wheel, and you're probably like, if you haven't seen this before, it's very confusing looking because there's all these types of symbols and lines and no words to describe anything. But basically what you see around the outside are all of the actual zodiac signs. So what you think of as like Aries, Taurus, Leo, all of that. So each person has all 12 signs represented on their chart, because this wheel basically is like representing the whole sky. Above the horizon, below the horizon, like everything. So we all have that in our birth chart. And some people have more things going on in signs than others. So in my example, you can see I have lots of action going on in some signs down here, and nothing really happening up here. But that doesn't mean those signs or energies aren't like present in my life. We all have aspects of all the different signs. It's in some way. It's just that some get more pronounced than others in different areas of our life. So then you'll notice it's also broken down into like these sections, which, the signs kind of line up with them, but these are the houses, each little individual like pie section. And houses are basically like areas of your life. So, some could represent the home, the house, domestic life, some represent your career, some represent social life, some represent creativity. So each house like represents a different area. And then what the actual things that you see in the houses are planets. They also count the sun and the moon as planets. So yeah, the sun and the moon and all the planets are in there. And that's showing you basically where those planets were in the sky when you were born. Because the sky has been assigned basically a different zodiac sign, each area of the sky. So we don't just have a sun sign. As you can see, we have a moon sign, we have a Jupiter sign, we have a Mars sign, all the planets. And each planet represents kind of a different, kind of like a different energy, and also sort of like a different area of life. But it's kind of the way that the book, The Inner Sky, describes it, I think is really a good way to look at it, because he says that the planets represent the what of something, like you're trying to, like, what is it that you're talking about? The houses represent the where and what aspect of your life, and the signs represent the how you're going to deal with that thing. So the planets are like, what are we talking about? What's happening? And then the signs tell us how we're going to deal with that. And the houses tell us in what area of life we're going to have to deal with that. And then those lines that you see, all these like geometric lines in between the planets, are representing what they call like aspects. And I'm not going to get into that. I don't really know how to do that much. That's like getting really complex, because not only are these things like influencing you, but also how the planets interact with each other. So it can get really complex and complicated, but we won't go there. Just like a little overview to give you an idea of how just your sun sign isn't really going to tell you that much. So let's see. Another interesting thing that I like about the signs and just astrology in general is that they kind of represent different archetypes, like different like energy types. So when I say archetype, if you think of like, if you just picture the archetype of the queen or the king or the jester or the fool or the martyr or the saint, like all these kind of just things that you have like an attached energy or associations with those things. So the signs kind of have that a little bit in them. They're kind of like archetypes. And another cool thing that I like about them is they kind of represent the 12 signs. Like if you look at them connectedly, they all represent kind of a life cycle, where Aries starts, it's the first sign, and that starts out as like bursting forth in the spring is when the Aries season is, and full of energy, full of life, full of vitality, ready to go. And then it evolves all the way to the last sign of Pisces, where it's all about like leaving this plane, going to the spiritual realm, dreamy. So it's like the end of life. So yeah, it's like one sign kind of evolves into the other, and it represents kind of like a life cycle, which is cool. But that doesn't mean like if you're an Aries that Pisces is going to be more evolved than you, that it doesn't work like that, because each sign has within it like different kind of way, like you can be more evolved in any of the signs versus like less evolved in that sign, if that makes sense. And I'll actually talk about like the gifts of each sign and then some of the downfalls of each sign as we go through them. But today I'm just going to be talking about the first 6 signs, because that is all they've released so far. So whenever they release the last 6 signs, that's when I'll be doing another video on those. So yeah, today they released the first 6 signs, which are, not today, but I'll be talking about the first 6 signs, which are Aries through Virgo. We're in Virgo season right now. It's now currently August 30th. So let's see, anything else I want to tell you about first? So yeah, I do want to say a couple more things. So what makes a sign? How does a sign kind of get its personality, or if you will? So there are 4 elements, which are earth, air, fire, and water. And each of those have like a certain kind of spirit or personality to them. Kind of like, and that's like informed by the actual elements themselves. And then there's 3 modes. And a mode, it's either fixed, mutable, or cardinal, which sounds weird, like what does that mean? But basically mutable means like adaptable, changeable, go with the flow, I guess. Cardinal is kind of like initiating, taking charge, leading, let's do this. And fixed is kind of like steadfast, a little stubborn, just very like staying as we are, steadfast in our minds. So there's 4 elements and 4 modes, and when you combine them in different ways, you get the 12 signs. So each sign has an element and a mode. So when you combine all the different combinations, that's what creates the 12 signs. And just finally, like instead of thinking of like your signs or the signs that you have a lot of in your chart, instead of thinking of like that's who you are, think more of that's who I'm here to become, and in its highest form, because each sign has kind of like its challenges, its not so great sides, and every sign has like its awesome sides and like what the highest form and expression of that sign can be. So think of it as like that's what you're here to learn to overcome. If you subscribe to like, okay, we have several lives, we're here to grow and learn and evolve, then it would be like, this is what I want to learn and overcome and grow from in this life. Okay. Yeah. I think that's all that I wanted to say before we actually get into each sign, right? Okay. So we're going to start with Aries. And again, I'll just be referring to my notes because there's a lot to remember. But Aries, we have birth dates for Aries are March 21st to April 19th. And Aries is also the ram. So you can see she has ram horns. I'll actually do a description kind of the sign first, and then I'll get into how I see that sign within the chart. So I'll put it up closer when I actually talk about the pattern, otherwise my arms might get really tired by the end of this. Yeah, so Aries is a fire sign, and it's also a cardinal sign is his mode, and that's, remember, that initiating, take charge, leading kind of mode. And fire is, you know, if you just think of fire, you kind of get the point, like very, you know, vital and like fast moving and full of life and energy. So that's Aries. And the archetypes for Aries are the warrior, the pioneer, the daredevil, and the survivor. So if you think of, like, again, we talked about the life cycle through the signs, Aries is that start. You can think of it like the big bang of creation, like bursting forth with energy and vitality and just like going for it, right? And that's Aries. So what if you have a lot of Aries in your chart, or wherever you see Aries in your birth chart, that's where you're here to learn courage, because Aries really teaches courage. Wherever you see Aries in your birth chart, that's where you can have a lot of, basically be a magnet for stress and crisis, because that's what it takes for Aries to grow and evolve. So if you have Aries, that Aries energy in your chart, or a lot of action going on there with the planets in Aries, you can always choose how you respond, but Aries is meant to stand and fight wherever this is showing. So what can happen, I guess the negative qualities or the downfall of what Aries could be is if they don't have something kind of good and right to fight for, then they can pick battles that they don't need to. They can get into the wrong fights and maybe fight for the wrong issues, or pointless fights. So they have to be careful of that. The gifts of Aries are vitality, survival instincts, intensity and directness, honesty, enthusiasm, independence, feistiness. They could also be belligerent and have a dislike for authorities. So think of just like a ram, Aries is ready to climb mountains and charge into battle. So let's look more closely at the chart. So you see she has the ram horns for sure, and it looks almost like the coming off of her, I don't know if those are wings or part of her clothes, but they look a little bit fiery in their nature, like a flame. So look at her posture. She's very open, head up, high, confident. She's not afraid, because in that posture where her heart and chest and center is really open for the world, and her throat, that's really showing like, I'm not afraid, come at me, like bring it on. So no fear at all. Aries is fearless. Okay, so let's move on to Taurus. So Taurus, if your sun is in Taurus if you were born between April 20th and May 20th. And Taurus is the bull. So again, I'll show it more up close when we go into the pattern. So now if you think about that cycle from that initiation and drive of Aries, now we really stabilize in the earth as Taurus, as the bull, very strong, stable in the earth. And Taurus is an earth sign. And also fixed sign, meaning that steadfastness, that just stability, just standing still in that spot. So the archetypes for Taurus are the earth spirit, the musician, and the silent one. So after the battle cry of Aries, Taurus is really seeking peace. So they're still fearless for sure, and they're actually so sure of that fearlessness that there's no need to show it off. So they just are still in that stability and solid ground. They're really meant to find a deep peace. And really, if you think of just a simple way of being, not doing, not pushing, not fighting, not even thinking, just really being. If you think of like a meditator in nature, that is Taurus. And Taurus energy actually needs nature to come to that deep peace. And it needs to express and learn through the five senses. So very bodily driven, very needs to feel things, get their hands into things and really feel it. They also can attain a quiet mind through listening to music or playing music, actually. Playing even more because they get to be that hands-on with the instrument. So some of Taurus' gifts are they have an aversion to drama, they have a skepticism of complexity, and they can and they have a reverence for what is, and they have real determination because again they're that fixed sign. Now the downfall can be if they mistake that inner security for outer security and become materialistic. So they want to build up that physical comfort and security, which they may actually give up their own growth to have that instead. And that can lead to a very boring, dull, or unfulfilling life. So they need to be aware of that. So let's look closer at the pattern. So Taurus has the bull horns, obviously. Oh, and I didn't mention actually, but like each sign also has the glyph, I guess, or the symbol for the sign in the chart. So Aries had that as well. Sorry, I didn't show that. But Taurus, this is the symbol for Taurus that you'll actually see like in the birth chart. It looks like a bull, actually. So let's see. You'll notice the posture is very square, straight on. It's very like, here I am, I'm stable, I'm secure. It's hard, it looks like she's kind of hard to push over. So she has that stability for sure. Now she also has like earthy colors in here, right? There's a lot of greens and like some kind of brownish yellows and purples, but it's like, I don't know if that's like grass or leafy pattern behind her, but it's pretty earthy type colors. She also has the horns of the bull on her shirt. I have to look at it to see it again this way. Yeah. So I think these actually down here are like the pattern of the bull horns. Now you'll also notice that she's kind of blinged out. So she maybe has mistaken that outer security for inner security with all that bling and material comforts. And maybe you can kind of see that in her expression. Does it look a little bored? I don't know. So yes, that is Taurus. Next, we have Gemini. All right, so Gemini are the twins. And if you were born between May 21st and June 21st, your sun is a Gemini. So Gemini is an air sign and it's mutable. And mutable again means adaptable, changeable, that type of thing. And their archetype is the witness, the teacher, the storyteller, or the journalist. So going back to that life cycle, you think from the stability and calm of that Taurus bull, Gemini would be like the bull in a china shop. So really they want to do and look at and see all the things, right? They want to perceive really all that there is. So even not so much to interpret, Gemini just wants to see everything and witness and observe everything. So it aims to collect and gather the raw data of life. And there's really not for any particular endpoint other than to experience all of perception. So that's talking, listening, observing, and they can be all over the place in their desire to take it all in. So Gemini wants to fit like 3 to 4 lifetimes into one, and actually their life can look like that, like they've lived 3 or 4 lifetimes. The gifts of Gemini include the art of speaking, Also listening if they choose to develop it. Curiosity, wonder, vitality, intelligence, adaptability. Now the downfall of Gemini can be that they can also twist information to really suit themselves if they're on the defensive. They can be prone to tension, like nervous tension, insomnia. So think of someone on like way too much caffeine. In more of the negative state, that can be Gemini. So in this pattern, obviously they are twins, so that is represented. Now it's interesting, at first I kind of thought, oh, they're identical twins, but if you look at it, one is looking at us, and the other one is looking down. So, you know, we could interpret that in different ways, like maybe because Gemini wants to see everything, they have two sets of eyes looking in different places, so they can see more at once. Or it could be kind of representing that dual side of Gemini that can be popularly talked about. Notice their hands are touching, and it's interesting that part because Gemini actually rules the hands, which might sound strange, rules hands, but each sign actually has like body parts that they kind of take over. So hands are one of them for Gemini. They can be a very tactile sign. They have very airy colors in this pattern, right? They're very like light pastel, airy blue. And they have feathers in their hair, and the feathers, you know, that kind of represents that air with, you know, birds of the air. It could also represent like how their minds tend to flit from place to place. And I don't know, does it look like they have wings? Like maybe little wings? It's hard to tell. It looks like they're wearing wings in a weird way. And that again could be like their air quality, and the mind is kind of like able to fly away into different realms. And it looks like they also kind of have multicolored hair, like blonde and brunette. So that could represent the variety that Gemini likes so much. All right. So next is Cancer. And Cancer is for those born between June 22nd to July 22nd. And Cancer is also the crab. And Cancer is a water sign. And it's now we're getting into recycling the modes that we talked about, because now we're back into cardinal, like Aries, except this is a water sign. The archetype for Cancer are the mother, the healer, and the invisible man or woman. So from the outward gatherings and adventures of Gemini, now it's kind of like time to rebound into the complete opposite and look totally inward and deep at emotions and the self. So we're getting away from the outside, going into the inside. So Cancer is here to feel it all. That is the good, the bad, the ugly, just the whole mess. They are meant to feel it all, but not only to feel it all, they are here to accept it all, which is the hard part, right? So it's easy to accept the good stuff, it's the hard stuff and the really hard stuff that they're also here to just like feel and accept it as what it is. Cancer feels so deeply and sensitively that they need an outer shell to protect themselves, just like the crab. One shell that they could wear could be shyness and just kind of like protecting themselves that way. Another could be getting lost in daydreams. Another could be like they just put on a mask, kind of wear a mask whenever they're around people or people they aren't really close with or don't trust yet. But in order to grow, Cancer actually has to shed that shell at some point to have like a bigger one as they grow as people. But it's that shedding of the shell that can be extremely vulnerable for Cancers. It can be really, really tough. So the gifts of Cancer are a vivid imagination, kindness, nurturing, protectiveness, They're amazing at mothering, but this can also be their downfall because, you know, it's great to be mothering to your children, but they tend to be mothering to everybody. So that can also be another kind of shell where when you're mothering, you know, you can't be vulnerable. You have to be protective, but not vulnerable. So it's a way for them to not really open up and reveal themselves as they help somebody else. So they have to kind of be careful of that. That could be their downfall because they're not letting themselves get vulnerable, and then they don't really grow from that. So let's look at the pattern. So obviously she looks crab-like. She's got the crab colors, she's got the crab claws on her shoulders, she's got this crown that looks like it could be part of a crab shell, and she's got a lot of like spikes around her, the protective part, right? So look and notice like her expression in her face is like a sideways type glance, which is pretty interesting because just like a crab who walks sideways, that's kind of how Cancer tends to approach people in situations, like kind of coming at it sideways, like definitely not head on like Aries or even Taurus. It's more protective because they're so sensitive, they just can't get out there and expose like their whole heart and everything because it would just get hurt. So they kind of come at things a little sideways. She has a little bit shyness in her glance, kind of down into the side, but at the same time, so far she's like the most motherly looking, approachable looking of the ones that we've seen so far, in her face at least. And actually of all the ones that we'll see today, she definitely has more of an approachable face, but really not the outside. Like you wouldn't want to hug that clothes, hug her with those clothes on, right? So it kind of shows the outer hardness or protection of Cancer, but then really the inner nurturing nature. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about her. And she also has the sign again of Cancer up there. All right, Leo is next. If you were born between July 23rd and August 22nd, you have a Leo sun. Leo is the lion, no surprise there. And Leo is a fire sign, so now we're recycling again the elements. We're back to fire. And also now we're in fixed for the mode, so that steadfastness that we talked about. The archetypes for Leo are the king or the queen, the performer, the child, or the clown. So now we're worn out by like all that inward looking that Cancer did, and now you're ready to take all the insides, all the things you learned from inside you, and you're ready to put it out there in the world and express it for everyone to see, and that's Leo. So no more secrets. Leo wants to show and express everything. So Leo is here to develop personality, really. It's here to really develop ego, which we think of sometimes as a bad thing, but we need that ego. It definitely has its place, and it doesn't always mean in a bad, arrogant way. It just is here to develop that personality. It wants to say yes to life without fear. So they're here to celebrate the self, create, express in a playful and spontaneous way. And the gifts to help them do that are charisma, radiance, leadership, creativity, and they know how to be happy and really present in the moment. Now the downfall of Leo can be that they need sometimes so much praise that they can come off as arrogant or needy for your attention, and that can obviously turn people away. And then they can feel like lonely and just like not good enough and try even harder, and it can create this cycle. So Leo really needs to learn that it's okay to ask for love and ask for that rather than trying to always perform to get that. So yes, the pattern, obviously, she is very lioness, leonine, I don't know. She has a mane, her hair is like a mane. She's got the colors of the lion, and she's got this very elaborate crown in her hair. to represent that queen. Let's see, the only thing, she has a very showy hairdo, but I'm actually not sure about in this one, and what I wouldn't really expect from Leo is her expression. You know, her eyes are closed, she's looking down into the side. The only thing, so one thing I can think of is maybe she's putting on a nice play and she's doing this dramatic act, because that's what Leo is great at. Another one could be that maybe she has been looking for all that praise and attention to her downfall, and now she's pushed people away and she feels that loneliness. The song that comes into my head now is like Lucky by Britney Spears. Yeah. So that is Leo. And again, you have her Leo sign up there. And now we're already to our last one, Virgo. And again, we're in Virgo season now, so Virgo. I actually have a lot written on Virgo. I think because they're probably one of the more misunderstood signs in popular astrology. But yeah, if you're born August 23rd to September 22nd, then your sun is Virgo. So we're getting back to Earth sign. Virgo is an Earth sign, but they're a mutable Earth sign, so that changeable, adaptable nature. The archetype is the servant, the martyr, the perfectionist, and the analyst. So once Leo has expressed all of it, then an expanded view of life takes hold in Virgo. But it's not from inexperience or prudence or lack of passion that they're called the virgin, but it's more like a purity. So they can be disconnected from earthly life because Virgo really wants and yearns for perfection, and as we know, this world is definitely not perfect. So without that possibility on Earth, then Virgo can really strive for self-development, and also helping others just to kind of keep themselves going and giving them something to do. So with self-improvement and natural talent, Virgo is here to really learn humility. Virgo has, I can't read my writing, sorry. Virgo has amazing abilities to see the ideal and what could be, but they can just as easily see the harshness and reality of what is. And that's actually what really drives the Virgo to kind of always keep pushing for more and better, because they see how it could be. They see this ideal world and how amazing it could be, and yet how far we are from that. And that really doesn't let Virgo rest at all. So also the Virgo really wants to be useful, and it's really, it likes to express itself through service to others. Now, this service is interesting. It's not like service out of the goodness of my heart, which, I mean, they have that too, but it's also like, you know, when you picture an ideal world, people would be of service to each other. So it's really more out of that ideal that they like to be of service. Kind of a part of their self-development. So the gifts of Virgo is that they have X-ray vision into what is, they have merciless self-reflection, they're determined, they have an amazing work ethic, they're really growth-oriented, they have patience, precision, and reliability. Now, one of the downfalls of Virgo is they have to be careful not to self-sacrifice too much, and that perfectionism can really turn to self-destruction if they're not careful. So they really have a lot of inner self-criticism just because of how clearly they can see what's ideal and how much they can see in themselves what might not be ideal. So in order to counter all that self-criticism, they really need to practice self-acceptance. Now, in this pattern, if we look at Virgo, so she really has those kind of virginal colors, and she's surrounded by butterflies in her little ideal world, or image of what the world could be. She also has wings, which I think could show her disconnection from this world and her way to that she moves up to that higher plane. Now she's holding a necklace in her hands, which I didn't even realize at first, but you can see she's holding it. And to me, she is taking it off because those earthly jewels really aren't as valuable to her as her own ideals. Like, materialism doesn't suit her. And it's the second earth sign. Like, Taurus was an earth sign, but Taurus was all about that, like, material world and standing there. But Virgo is kind of evolving out of that. And, you know, maybe she's taking off the necklace to give to someone less fortunate as part of her service. But her expression, she's looking down to the side. Her eyes are closed, so this could be for a couple of reasons. Maybe she is experiencing all of that self-criticism and doesn't feel worthy. Or maybe she's sad about, like, how the world really is compared to how she sees it or how it could be. But what I don't really know is she has, like, this something else around her neck, right? Like a choker or collar. And it's linked to the long grasses behind her. So I don't know, maybe it's like a thin line of something binding her to the earth. Maybe that's why she's sad. But another cool thing is that butterflies represent transformation and self-growth. You know, obviously you transform during self-growth. And maybe it's that giving up of the necklace or the earthly things to help her grow and transform into that butterfly. Yeah, so that is Virgo. Wow, we're done already. So, I know that was like a lot, but I hope you thought it was fun or interesting. And I'm gonna be doing, like, whenever, I don't know when they're gonna release the next 6, but stay tuned for that whenever they do, because I'll definitely be buying them. I have to, like, somehow, I don't know when I'm gonna stitch all these. I just have the patterns and none of it kitted up at all, so yeah, we'll see. But I really am looking forward to stitching these, and I think it's really cool, like, just the more you know about the signs, like, as you stitch them, I think it kind of brings out more like interest and excitement in it, at least for me. So yeah, I hope you liked my first Flosstube extra. If you have any questions, like, definitely let me know. Let me know what you thought of it, if you liked these little extra things. Yeah, and I'm planning on doing my regular Flosstube coming up hopefully another time this week. So yeah, that was the Zodiac Girls by Nora Corbett. And again, all the info will be linked down below for things that I talked about today and how you can also look at your own birth chart. Oh, okay, my voice is going, so I'm gonna leave, but I'll see you guys soon. Bye.